So, what makes me cranky about Darkest Hour? Massive, overwrought title cards to show the date. Nothing pulls me out of a film faster than when you not only take over the whole screen with a title card, but then animate it to further draw attention to it. This is supposed to be an immersive movie where you follow Winston Churchill around during his darkest hour, in which he finally achieves his lifelong goal of becoming Prime Minister, only to have the Germans immediately rout the Allied forces and surround them at Dunkirk. But it's kind of hard to stay immersed in the movie when every 15 minutes you get 10 May splashed all over the screen and then kerchunk, the date rolls over to 11. I mean, do we really even need the dates for a movie that only covers like a month of 1940? I thought when they started doing this that we were going to get a look at Churchill throughout his time as Prime Minister, and therefore you'd need the dates to mark the time jumps. But no, it's really just May 1940, so it made the movie feel decidedly less epic than it probably should have. Darkest Hour does, however, do a much better job of showing why Dunkirk itself was so epic compared to the actual Dunkirk movie we got from Christopher Nolan earlier this year. It took all of one shot for this movie to do what Nolan utterly failed to do in his movie's entire runtime, namely show the scale of this whole civilian effort, probably because there weren't enough historically accurate craft for him to replicate it as it actually happened, and he was just too proud to CGI a few more boats in. Darkest Hour also frames the stakes way better than Dunkirk, the movie. Since we get to see the larger possible repercussions back in England, and this movie isn't told in a confusing time warp where past, present, and future are all about to collide, like we're watching the movie through some kind of weird wormhole. That's not to say that Darkest Hour doesn't have its own pacing issues. Since it focuses on such a short period of Churchill's life, it's trying to just build to that one epic moment of victory, rather than growing up with Churchill and seeing him off in the end. Unfortunately, World War II didn't end in June of 1940, so basically you end up with some kind of unsatisfying title cards to summarize the rest of his life and send you on your way. They also make a lot out of Churchill's secretary, but that kind of goes nowhere as well. In the beginning, it's almost like we're going to see the story from her perspective, which would have been a pretty interesting way to go about it, but ultimately she's just kind of another character who pops in from time to time, a lot like his wife, who only shows up for a few words of encouragement and then ninja vanishes for another half hour until she comes back again. I'll take that over Sally Field's scene chewing in Lincoln any day, though. Speaking of which, people have been comparing Gary Oldman's turn as Churchill in this movie to Daniel Day-Lewis in Lincoln, and there's a good reason to do so. Oldman is expectedly fantastic, and rarely can you tell it's him under that absolutely fabulous makeup job they did to make him look like Churchill. I know we tend to gloss over awards for things like hair and makeup, but the guys in charge of doing the makeup for Darkest Hour deserve all of them this year because it's really impressive how convincing it is. Usually old people makeup is the easiest thing in the world to spot, but whatever trickery they used, be it CGI or rubber and glue, worked out really well. Between Oldman's performance and that makeup job, there are definitely moments in the movie where you'd swear they somehow brought Churchill back from the dead. Aside from that, though, Lincoln is a much better movie overall. I would and have watched Lincoln more than once and continue to enjoy it every time, aside from the Sally Fields thing, of course. Whereas Darkest Hour is good for a watch, but there's not that much to it in the end. I don't feel like I got a new sense of the man or got to see Churchill come to life in a way that would have been impossible for me to witness otherwise, the way Lincoln did for him. So I'm sorry to say this is a rental kind of movie for me. Its release seems pretty limited as it is, so you may have trouble finding it in the theater anyway, but unless you're a huge Churchill buff, it's probably going to come across more as the obvious Oscar bait that it is, rather than a compelling look at a moment in a historic figure's life. Don't get me wrong, it's not a bad movie by any means. It's just not the kind of home run I was hoping for, nor the kind of thing that you really need to see on the big screen to get the most out of it. That's what I thought about Darkest Hour anyway. Let me know what you thought in the comments below, and hopefully this time I don't have to put on the Churchill affectation for you to like the video and subscribe to the channel.